Good evening and welcome to the programme with me, Riz Latif. We start tonight with a special report on illegal Orthodox Jewish schools where it's estimated up to 1,000 boys have disappeared from mainstream education. BBC London has discovered 12 so-called yeshivas operating in the capital. They're unregistered, unmonitored and unregulated. They teach boys strict religious studies for up to 15 hours per day behind closed doors. Two former pupils have told us that they were deprived of a proper education. Now there's a growing call for them to be shut down. Here's our education reporter, Mark Ashdown.
A nondescript house in Stamford Hill, North London, with a window into a secret world. It's well into the evening. Most children are at home in bed, but here hundreds of Orthodox Jewish boys are still at school.
If it's a yeshiva, 150 boys, everybody's in one big room, learning.
This Jewish teenager, who's now left and asked us to hide his face and voice, describes what it's like.
Basically, the whole day you're locked up, from about 7 a.m. to 9:10 in the evening.
He studied at a yeshiva from age 11 to 16. So did his friend, who's also now left and also wants anonymity.
You grow up pretty much speaking Yiddish most of your life, both at home and at school. You grow up with without very basic skills, basic English, basic maths.
This is a yeshiva in Jerusalem. All the boys study is the 22 books of the Talmud. All day long, nothing else. In North London, it's now estimated 1,000 boys have disappeared into a dozen unregulated schools which are doing the same. They leave with no grasp of English, maths, let alone the national curriculum. So we've been given this list of 12 schools which operate in this area. So we're going to go and try and find them. They're hidden, but not hard to find if you look. There are boys at windows, occasionally out front. Past 9 o'clock and a group of boys are walked into one of the addresses. We did contact all of them and hand-delivered a letter asking if they'd be interviewed, but none got back to us.
For many boys, once you're 13, you're only allowed out at mornings and at night, and usually when it's dark, so you don't get exposed.
The whole system works like a trap. They just trap you from when you're born until when you die. Every single step in your life is just a trap.
Orthodox Jewish girls are educated in more mainstream schools like Yesodei HaTorah, though they've been criticised over restrictions on admissions, uniform and redacting some exam questions. Any establishment educating children for 20 hours a week or more should be registered as a school and regulated. Those who don't are breaking the law and could face prosecution. Some feel with a clampdown underway on Muslim and Christian faith schools which fail to teach a broad curriculum or British values, action here is long overdue.
They do know about it, and they've known about it for a very long time. And this is what's such a scandal, is that they haven't done anything despite knowing that these schools exist and that these children are being subjected to an incredibly limited education.
Yeshivas cause concern in the wider Jewish community too. Rabbi Jonathan Romain is chair of the UK Rabbinic Court and says it's time to stop turning a blind eye to what he calls an open secret.
It's something that the Department of Education really needs to pull them up on very sharply, not just because it's illegal, but it's also doing a double disservice. Firstly, to the children themselves, it's denying them the basic skills of English and maths and science, really preventing them from having sort of working opportunities later on. And secondly, it means that whole community is sort of cut off from the national conversation. They can't take part in national life and integrate at all.
Outside world is evil. You're not allowed to be friends with them. You're not allowed to speak their language. You're not allowed to talk to them. It's like they brain damage you into your head that it's not that every non-Jew is going to kill you. It's just, we are different. We are Jewish.
It is to all intents and purposes a form of child neglect or child abuse. The state has a responsibility to ensure that every child does get that minimum level of education to function in the outside world.
A source close to the Education Secretary told us yeshivas are on their radar. The consultation launched on Friday will look to strengthen the government's powers to make sure all schools teach a broad curriculum. Hackney Council says it works with the Jewish community to identify unregistered schools. Ofsted says it won't hesitate to make inspection visits when necessary. We spoke to more boys who didn't want to even do an interview. There is now a support group for those trying to get educated and integrated into wider society. They say they're supporting dozens of boys. The numbers grow every week.
I'm not educated. I don't have knowledge. I'm a lost bird, you know? Like, basically, I lost 20 years. Somebody killed me for 20 years and reborned me with an older figure.
A shocking end there. People will be watching, wondering, how can this happen?
Well, especially considering there are other schools, Muslim schools, for example, which are raided and closed down, and these apparently are allowed to just carry on. I think there are a number of reasons why. Firstly, this is a very secretive, segregated community. They're very underground, if you like, and I think there's a fear of driving them further away. Secondly, parents pay fees to send their children there. That's complicated. And thirdly, in a sense, they're harmless in that there are priorities elsewhere where children are being perhaps radicalised. That sort of thing doesn't happen here. Even so, there's no doubt these boys are being let down. They deserve a full education. That's their basic right, and they're being deprived of that.
Do you get any sense that the government will look at sorting this out?
Well, I think so. I think they are. But they're not just going to wade in and start closing them down. I think that's what this consultation's aimed at, which they launched on Friday. It's a trawl for information. They want parents to come forward with concerns. They think there's an unregistered school of any type in their area. Then they can push to strengthen their powers, engage with them, encourage them to change, if not, force them. There has been a bit of buck passing until now. Who knew what, who has or hasn't acted. But it's clear they need to take this seriously now. In New York, just last week, this came to a head. A group of parents and former students are suing 4 yeshivas, the state and the local school district for not providing a broad education. I think everyone here will be watching that unfold closely.
OK, Mark, thanks very much indeed. Mark Ashdown.